We've been digging into the global faith and entertainment study. It's quite a substantial piece of research, came from HarrisX, working together with the Faith and Media Initiative.
Right.
And what makes it so valuable, I think, is that it brings together views from almost 10,000 entertainment consumers.
Right.
That's across 11 countries. And then also these really in-depth chats with over 30 industry leaders. The actual directors, producers, writers, actors, execs, making this stuff in places like the U.S., Spain, Italy, Canada, Mexico, Honduras, Nigeria.
Wow. Okay. So a really broad scope then on both sides, audience and creators. So our goal today is really to unpack what this study tells us. How is faith seen in entertainment? How do audiences feel versus the people making it? And crucially, is there room, maybe even a real demand for entertainment to reflect the diverse realities of faith more authentically?
Exactly. So with all that data, where should we start?
Good question. Where's the best entry point?
Well, I think we first need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of faith globally. It's fundamental.
Yeah.
The study points out that a huge 73% of the world's population identifies as religious, spiritual, or a person of faith. I mean, that's a massive base to even consider.
73%. Yeah, that's huge. And the study breaks this down geographically, doesn't it? I saw these categories: high, medium, and low faith identification. How does that look?
It does, yeah. And it's quite revealing. So in that high category, you've got countries where faith is just deeply woven into the cultural fabric. Think Nigeria, an incredible 96% identify with faith there.
96%. Wow.
And Brazil's right up there, too, at 95%. India, 94%. Turkey, 90%. Really dominant.
Okay, those are seriously significant numbers. So then we move into the medium category. What countries fall there?
Yeah. The medium group includes places like the U.S. at 77%, Mexico at 75%, Italy 72%, and Canada at 68%. Still, a very clear majority, but definitely a noticeable step down from that first group.
Right. Still well over half, often over 2/3. And finally, the low category.
That rounds it out. We see the UK at 51%, so just over half, then Germany at 46%, and Japan comes in lowest at 28%. It really highlights just how differently faith manifests, or at least how people identify with it, across the globe.
Okay, so point taken. A vast majority of the global population identifies with some form of faith. Now, the other side of the coin, how much entertainment are these same people consuming? Are they big watchers of TV and movies?
Oh, absolutely. That's the other key piece here. The study shows really high engagement with entertainment. Over half globally watch TV or movies daily or almost daily.
Over half every day.
Yep. And in some places, it's even higher. Japan, despite having the lowest faith identification, has 69% watching daily or near daily. Canada and the U.S. are both up there at 61%.
So you've got this huge overlap, right? A world largely identifying with faith and a world heavily consuming entertainment.
Exactly. Which naturally leads to the big question.
Yeah.
How well do those two things, faith life and media consumption, actually intersect in the content people are seeing?
Right. Which gets us right to the core issue. How is faith being portrayed? And it sounds like the study found some major problems there.
That's putting it mildly. Yeah, there's this really widespread feeling that the current depictions of religion and faith in entertainment are just not hitting the mark. A pretty striking 63% globally believe that entertainment actually perpetuates religious stereotypes.
63%, that's nearly 2/3. That's a really strong sentiment. Does that feeling change much across those high, medium, and low faith countries?
It does, and it's actually quite interesting. The belief that entertainment pushes stereotypes is stronger in the medium countries, that's 68%, and the low countries, 65%.
Higher than in the high faith countries.
Yeah, which came in at 56%. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe in societies where faith is so deeply embedded, people view those portrayals differently.
How so?
Well, perhaps there's, a stronger internal understanding that kind of buffers the impact of stereotypes. Or maybe there's just less exposure to diverse representations within that society, so the stereotypes don't seem as stark. It's hard to say for sure, but the difference is notable.
That's a really fascinating point. The study also mentions this idea of one-note storylines. What does that mean exactly?
Yes, this was a key finding. It means that across different faiths, even looking at atheism, people feel that major religious groups like Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam are often shown through really narrow, predictable narratives, like the same story over and over.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So the study found 53% of Christians feel that portrayals of Christianity just follow the same limited plot lines. And even general entertainment viewers, 56% of them, agree. And you see similar things for other faiths. Hinduism, 61% of Hindus see this repetition, and 54% of general viewers do too.
So it's not just adherents feeling this way.
No, it suggests a pretty broad sense that the complexity, the diversity within these huge global faiths just isn't being explored properly in our stories.
So it sounds like people aren't really seeing the richness of their own faith, or maybe other faiths, reflected back at them, which I guess leads straight to, what do people want to see?
Exactly. And the study gives a pretty clear answer on that. There's a really strong global desire for more accuracy and more diversity in how faith is shown. A huge 80% worldwide feel it's important for the entertainment industry to basically get more accurate when depicting faith.
80%. That is a powerful message. Does that desire for accuracy shift much across those country categories?
It does. And maybe this isn't surprising, but the importance placed on accuracy, it's highest in those high faith identification countries. Like, look at Brazil. It's a massive 94% saying accuracy is important. Nigeria, 93%. India, 91%. Huge numbers.
Makes sense. And even in the low category.
Even there, a solid 67% still think accuracy is important. So really, right across the board, people value getting it right.
Okay, accuracy is key. What about that desire for diverse perspectives, seeing like a wider range of viewpoints on faith?
Also really significant. Globally, 68% want to see more diverse perspectives on different faiths in their TV and movies.
2/3 want more diversity, and how does that vary?
Again, some interesting differences. Brazil hits the top again at 91% wanting diversity. Italy and Nigeria are up in the 80s. But then you look at Japan, it shows the lowest desire for diverse perspectives, down at 33%.
Only a third in Japan. Any thoughts on why?
Well, it could reflect different cultural norms around discussing or showing faith publicly, or maybe it reflects a more homogeneous religious landscape within Japan itself compared to somewhere like Brazil or Nigeria.
Interesting nuances there. The study also mentioned something about entertainment as a potential learning tool, didn't it? Learning about other faiths.
Yes, and this is actually a really encouraging point. Nearly 6 in 10 globally, 59%, said they've actually learned something new about another religion from watching a movie or a TV show.
That's quite something.
Isn't it? And again, you see variations. Nigeria leads here with 83% reporting learning something. India's high too at 75%. Germany and Japan are lower, both around 44%. But it really highlights the potential, doesn't it? Thoughtfully made entertainment can help foster understanding between different faith groups.
So people want accuracy, they want diversity. What are the main reasons behind this? Why does better representation actually matter so much to viewers?
The study points to a few key drivers. Top reasons people want better representation. Well, first, to build understanding between people of different beliefs. Second, to dismantle those harmful stereotypes and prejudices we talked about. And third, to create a sort of environment where people feel more comfortable freely practicing and expressing their own faith.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about using this really powerful cultural force, entertainment, to build a more informed, more respectful world. Did the study put a number on that belief?
It did. A significant 42% globally believe that accurate portrayals of faith and religion in movies and TV are actually crucial for promoting understanding and respect for diverse beliefs.
Nearly half the world sees that direct link. Wow.
Yeah, between what's on screen and how we relate to each other off screen.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly. Let's talk themes. What themes are like dominant now in entertainment versus what viewers actually want more of? What did the study find there?
This is where it gets really interesting and where you see a potential gap. According to viewers, the themes they see most often right now, things like family, friendship, conflict, power, pretty standard stuff maybe.
Right, familiar territory.
But when you ask them what themes they want to see more of, the picture changes. People want more stories about friendship, yes, but also nature, family again, inspiration, the environment, and crucially for us, faith and religion.
So faith and religion are on the wish list more than the currently showing list.
Exactly. It's just a real potential gap between what's being produced and what a pretty big chunk of the audience is actively looking for.
Okay, so there's this clear, maybe unmet demand for content exploring faith and spirituality more deeply. Now let's flip the coin. Let's look at the industry perspective. What came out of those in-depth interviews with the creators, the execs?
Yeah, those interviews gave a fascinating look, kind of behind the curtain. And they revealed some key trends, some real underlying concerns. One of the biggest themes was something the study calls sidelined out of fear. Basically, a lot of industry pros admitted, quite openly, that they often just avoid religious themes.
Avoid them. Why?
Fear. Real fear of causing offense, number one. And number two, a worry that content focused on faith just won't do well financially. It won't sell.
Fear of offense. I can see that being a challenge in our diverse world, but does that fear actually line up with what the audience, the 80% wanting accuracy, is saying?
Well, that's the core tension, isn't it? As one director and producer said, and I'm quoting here, everyone is afraid of offending, so you end up getting systems that homogenize everything out of fear. Another CEO pointed out that Hollywood's big on diversity now, but religion, he said it's not very much a topic they think of because unconsciously they prefer to avoid potentially controversial topics.
So there's a real caution, maybe even an avoidance, driving decisions.
Palpable, yeah.
And did the industry folks also echo that one-note narrative concern we heard from consumers? Did they see that problem too?
They did, absolutely. Industry leaders recognize that tendency to just fall back on stereotypes, create simplistic views of faith. One director-producer even talked about a potential disconnect between Hollywood perspectives and, his words, middle America, suggesting maybe these stereotypes come from a limited understanding within the industry itself.
But it couldn't have been all about fear and stereotypes, right? Surely some in the industry see the power entertainment has to, like, build bridges.
Oh, definitely, yes. There's a clear understanding among many decision makers that entertainment can connect people. One producer and CEO stated it pretty clearly. We don't want to create stories that are going to separate us more. We need to tell stories that bring us together. So there's definitely an awareness of the potential positive impact.
And what about the market for it? That unrealized potential, did the industry interviews touch on whether there's actually an audience, a business case for this kind of content?
Yes, and this was a really significant thread in those talks. Many industry pros acknowledge that there's likely a big underserved audience out there, an audience hungry for content that explores spiritual themes meaningfully. A market, basically, that Hollywood hasn't fully tapped into. One director called it a large audience that feels unseen and undercelebrated.
Yep.
And they framed it not just as a business opportunity, but also a moral obligation to represent society.
A moral obligation, that's strong.
Yeah. And another exec talked about a market for films that are uplifting and show the values of all faiths. So there's definitely a growing recognition of this unmet need.
Okay, so it sounds like despite the understandable anxieties about controversy, there's also this dawning awareness within the industry itself. People want more spiritual representation.
Precisely. Many creators see it. They see audiences looking for positivity, for spirituality, for stories that connect us, not divide us. Like that executive producer said, I think there's going to be a market for films that are uplifting. And another director mentioned this middle space of values, things that we all celebrate, suggesting a real hunger for that type of content right now.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. What are the main takeaways from this whole deep dive into the global faith and entertainment study? What's the big picture?
Well, I think the central opportunity that really jumps out is this. If you create thoughtful, diverse, accurate portrayals of faith and spirituality, it has huge potential to connect with the massive global audience.
Right.
We've seen that both sides, the consumers watching and the professionals making it, that they recognize this desire for stories that actually reflect the real spectrum of lived faith experiences and values. And crucially, this isn't just about, social good. It's also a significant, potentially untapped business opportunity.
And money talks in the industry.
Exactly. As the study kind of implies, proving that this kind of content can be financially successful, that's likely going to be the key catalyst for driving real widespread change.
Okay, so just to recap for everyone, we've seen this huge global presence of faith. We've seen a widespread feeling that it's not being shown accurately or diversely in entertainment right now. We've heard a really strong desire from audiences for more authentic portrayals. And we see an entertainment industry that's, cautious, but also starting to recognize the potential, the demand for these kinds of stories.
That sums it up well. There's this growing understanding that there's a better way, a more resonant way to tell these stories, a way that connects more authentically with a huge global audience, and maybe, just maybe, helps foster a bit more understanding along the way.
And that brings us perfectly to our final thought for you listening. When you consider that most of the world identifies with a faith or spiritual tradition, and most of the world is also watching movies and TV, what kind of impact could more nuanced, more authentic portrayals really have? Not just on understanding between different groups, which is huge, but on the actual stories we tell ourselves, on the values that get amplified in our culture. What role do you think entertainment plays in shaping how we all see faith? Definitely something to ponder.